Welcome to the Counselling Armchair, Nurturing Wellbeing and Study, hosted by Counselling and Psychological Services at RMIT University. The Counselling Armchair is recorded on the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nations as the traditional owners of the land. This podcast aims to help you manage your university life so you can be at your best. We'll be sharing with you tips on student life here and ways to enhance your mental well-being. Welcome to the Counselling Armchair, Nurturing Wellbeing and Study. Today, we're fortunate to be joined again by our special guest, Jennifer Kemp, who spoke with us on a previous episode on the topic of perfectionism. But we couldn't let her go without tapping into her expertise and wisdom on the area of neurodiversity and executive functioning. Jennifer Kemp is a clinical psychologist and author, and has co-authored the Neurodivergence Skills Workbook for Autism and ADHD, Cultivate Self-Compassion, Live Authentically, and Be Your Own Advocate, which was released on July 1st. Jennifer shares transformative strategies in supporting people across the neurodiverse spectrum. And so together we'll discuss how executive function impacts daily life and learning and explore practical strategies for harnessing its strengths. Welcome back, Jennifer. Thank you so much for joining us again today.
Oh, it's great to be back. I really enjoyed our last conversation, so I'm looking forward to chatting to you again today.
We did too. So for those listeners who haven't heard the episode on perfectionism, would you mind sharing with us a bit about yourself and your interest in neurodivergence?
Sure, yeah. So I'm a clinical psychologist in Adelaide, and a little bit similar to perfectionism, I became quite interested in neurodivergence, specifically within that autism and ADHD, and more broadly neurodivergence, when I discovered that I was neurodivergent. So that was a bit of a light bulb moment just a couple of years ago, really, now. And yeah, it had hit me like a bolt out of the blue. So I was diagnosed as autistic after realizing maybe 6 months earlier that was probably the case. And it led to a lot of, soul searching and deep diving into the data, which is what you do when you're both a psychologist and an autistic person. And then I got to level up a little bit later and managed to get ADHD diagnosis as well. So it's, you'd say I'm an AuDHD clinical psychologist now. And since then, the way I like to learn about things, the way I motivate myself to learn is I set myself a goal. So it'll be like I'll write a proposal to run a presentation on a topic I know a bit about, but I want to know more about. And then I have to learn that stuff in order to deliver the presentation. But this time I signed up for a whole book. And I have to say, I know, it nearly killed me because when you write a book on this topic and you know that autistic people are going to read it, you know that they're going to be particular about the facts being right. So it was a lot of work and a lot of fact-checking, lovingly fact-checking to make sure I wasn't, making obvious mistakes. I learned a lot about myself in the process. I realized that a lot of my clients are neurodivergent, and that's been really exciting, sort of helping them go through their process. And then as they're going through theirs, I'm also going through mine. So it's been fantastic few years of self-discovery, really, in this. And I love talking about it. I'm excited to talk about executive functioning with you because I think we just touched on procrastination last time. And one of the key reasons people might procrastinate is anxiety and related to perfectionism. But I also often find that there's a big executive functioning role there. And that might be one area where, there's such a strong overlap with autism and ADHD.
Yeah, I think that's such a good point. And I feel like so many of our students are also on a similar journey of discovering, their neurodivergence and just, how does my brain work and what do I need?
Yeah, it's so empowering though. Being able to say, I'm not great at remembering facts. I need a lot of repetition in order to remember facts. Or I learn through understanding deeply how things work, which didn't help me in my exams, as we were talking about last time, but was great for assignments. So it's, I guess, knowing that now, I wish I'd known back then. That was a lot of years ago, but yeah.
Would you mind explaining the difference between neurodiversity and neurodivergence, just for any listeners who may not be aware of the difference?
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, it's a common confusion in language that you'll hear.
Yeah.
So people often say, you know, my neurodiverse clients or students or whatever, all of your clients are neurodiverse, because neurodiversity is a statement of like all human diversity. So just like we have biodiversity and we have neurodiversity, and so neurodiversity is basically the idea that we all have very different neurologies. It's more than our brains, it's our entire body, because our central nervous system is also includes our spinal cord, part of our brain. We have neurons also in our gut, and we have a peripheral nervous system that is sensing the world as well. And so if you are neurodiverse, it basically means you could be neurotypical or neurodivergent. It just means you are unique in who you are. If you are neurodivergent, you share some characteristics about the way that is essentially wired up that you share with a subgroup of people. And the definitions we have don't really fit all that well, I think, in many ways, very limiting, like the formal diagnostic criteria. But if you have an autistic neurology, and that's all of the nervous systems that we're talking about here, then you have some characteristics, I guess you would say, that you would share with other autistic people, and the same with ADHD. And then, of course, we have all sorts of other types of neurodivergence, including there can be sort of more biologically understood ones like Down syndrome and epilepsy, and also schizophrenia and bipolar, and a whole bunch of different things, and so many that you start to wonder who is neurotypical, because it's like even giftedness would be considered by definition a form of neurodivergence, as well as an intellectual disability. So anyone who's sort of significantly different from what's considered to be the norm, whatever the hell that is.
Yeah, whatever the hell that is. Exactly right.
I don't know. I don't know anyone who is there.
No, I
Something
know.
about standard deviations from the mean or something. I don't know.
If we line everyone up in a row, Melissa, like, you know, there'll be one person who's
right
like
in the middle.
average in the middle, and everyone else diverges from that.
Everyone else is not there. Yeah, exactly. But I think that's what's so nice about sort of this neurodiversity affirming way of thinking in the world that's coming to the fore more and more, which is this idea of, rather than seeing that as dysfunctional, to see it as difference, like different personality characteristics, or different colour hair, or different colour eyes, or whatever, you know.
Absolutely.
I think that's such a healthier way to think about it. It's a much more positive way to think about it as well.
It is, and in that, not then minimising people's experience with the kind of we're all neurodivergent or we're all a bit autistic, because of course we're not, and that those sorts it's a delicate balance, isn't it? Because it's sort of normalising this, but also saying, because you are different from the way that our society is set up, which is assuming a sort of neurotypicality, you experience additional difficulties, and that is disabling for you, and therefore need extra support or different ways of learning. It's valid.
That's such a good point.
It's such a delicate line to walk, isn't it? That you find?
Yeah, exactly. No, I agree. And my daughter has ADHD, and you know, she's 14, and it's, you know, there are certain things that she really struggles with, you know, and now my husband's going, I think I might have ADHD as well. It's like, that would actually make sense. That would make a lot of things make sense. So, you know, I think, you know, we are all asking ourselves the question, but now it's maybe not, doesn't have to feel so frightening in a way of like there's something wrong with me, but more, if I understand myself, then I know the adjustments that I might need to make, or that I might need to ask other people to make, so that I can still achieve everything I want to achieve. And I just think it's a healthier mindset. It
is. There's still a huge amount of stigma attached to it.
There is. We've still got a long way to go.
we will find that people really are experiencing huge problems because of the stigma in their family or, in their peer group. I love the current generation of younger people are so much more understanding of diversity in all of its forms, right? So I think it's incredible. We're going to see change. There's no doubt about it. But the far, neurodivergent people historically have experienced far worse physical and mental health outcomes and even shorter lifespans, and it's got to change, and it will change, but it's a lot of people working hard towards that too, which is great.
Definitely. Yeah, and Jennifer, you mentioned the term executive functioning, and again, just for anyone listening who doesn't know what that term means, could you describe what that refers to?
Yeah, so our executive functioning is kind of like our management and administration system in our brain. So it's really just a way of describing some of the functions that our frontal lobes, I remember this one, frontal lobe is, it's the last part of our brain to develop. And so over time, we're still developing this well into our 20s and 30s, these sort of sets of skills. Now, I guess you can get the genetic lottery and have a really full deck of cards there, full set, and they're just under-resourced, I guess, in some. And so it's really quite interesting. So if you think about the executive functions, there are things like being able to initiate tasks, get started and switch between tasks. They're planning, organising, tracking time. So having this sort of sense of where the passing of time, which a lot of people have very different, I think ADHDs often have a much more fluid sense of time, and so can lose track of time, can run late, can have difficulty anticipating or estimating how long something will take, and underestimate sometimes. There's other things, there's the ability to manage your urges and impulses and to monitor yourself to manage the impact of your behaviour on others and your progress towards goals. And of course, emotion regulation is also an executive function. So it's still, we know, developing. We don't have a 3-year-old has very little ability to regulate their own emotions. As a parent, you have to help them. Yes. And then, sometimes a 23-year-old or 33-year-old or whatever, still it's something. And difficulties with emotion regulation is a big part of executive functioning. It has a big part to play, I guess, in mental health problems as well.
Yeah. Can you tell us a bit more about that? So the relationship between neurodivergence and mental health challenges?
Sure. Well, broadly neurodivergent people, we've already touched upon, experience greater difficulties in everyday life. And so it results in an experience that's called minority stress. So minority stress was originally researched, I think the theory was developed in early 2000s, looking at experience of gay men in America, that those particular studies, and now it's been looked at more broadly as the experience of anyone who is different from the society in any kind of way, then can experience daily hassles and microaggressions and difficulties that then lead to a whole cascading range of problems, worsened health outcomes, worsened mental health, greater isolation and loneliness, more risk-taking behaviour as well, acting out behaviour, all sorts of things can be the result of minority stress. And then you've got the neurobiology differences for neurodivergent people depending what they are. So ADHDers, and it's important to say that the majority of autistic people would meet the criteria for ADHD, so well over 85%, over 80% would also be an ADHD if they're assessed, and at least 50% of ADHDers would also be autistic. So it's something you definitely look at when you're working with people and screen for both. So I'll just sort of say the AuDHD, most people experience difficulties with regulating their emotions. So that can mean really big emotional reactions to things, not necessarily understanding what they mean, depending on their ability to interpret those emotional sensations in their body, and then difficulty calming yourself down, which is what emotion regulation is. It's the ability to get yourself back to, I guess you'd say, homeostasis, sort of to a central sort of state of calm. And that can lead to like all sorts of challenges with sort of acting out or harm. So it can get quite extreme and distressing for people. And it can also mean like really heightened anxiety and distress. And one key area going like it's related to executive functioning, but you'll hear people talk about a lot is rejection sensitive dysphoria, which seems to me to be essentially a sort of trauma response to lots of maybe experiences of criticism or trauma, even if they're quite small ones across your life, and bullying and things like that. And then like big emotional reactions and difficulty regulating and calming them down. And so people will have really quite profound, pervasive, that's what dysphoria means, really, experiences that affect every part of their life. I have had clients who've been through sort of a dysphoric feeling that has lasted for over a year because of some things that have happened with friends that have sent them really into quite deep depression. So these are things that will often be labelled depression. Perhaps the origin is actually a little bit like different to what we might expect.
Yeah, so it can really have a profound impact in terms of maybe your sense of self and like, you know, am I safe? You know, am I liked? Yeah. All of those things. Yeah. It's really profound.
Yeah, a lot of anxiety. Yeah. And a lot of burnout as well. So executive functioning, I guess if you have slightly under-resourced and then or overextended. So whenever the demands of things around you, whether they be your uni assignments or demands of life, exceed the resources that you've got, you're going to feel burned out. You're going to feel overwhelmed. So some people have quite a lot, but everyone will have a limit. So even people who are really good at executive functioning, being organised, can reach a limit where there's just too many things on their plate and it kind of falls apart. And that can happen sort of sometimes a bit earlier for ADHDers where it's just harder to juggle. It takes more effort, more mental load to juggle those things. And so that mental load contributes to sort of getting overloaded and burned out. So burnout is a really big problem in neurodivergent people, which is often mislabeled as a whole bunch of other mental health problems.
Right.
Oh, this is a huge topic. We're just like, you're asking questions.
It's all connected.
You scratch the surface and there's more and more. Someone should write a book on it.
Oh, I know. I can talk for hours on this topic without drawing breath, so just stop me when you need to.
No, it's so useful what you're saying, because I think that, that's certainly things that I've observed in clients, in my own child. It is a real struggle. And look, it's hard at the other end as well. Like if I think about my daughter, she definitely has that rejection sensitivity and that emotional overwhelm and that difficulty regulating her emotions. And it can be something very small that we might say to her that's not even meant as a criticism. And there'll be an enormous reaction to it. And we're kind of like, I feel like I'm walking on eggshells all the time. Like, I don't know when I'm going to set her off. And like, we're at least mental health literate, and my husband's not a psychologist, but he's pretty self-aware in that area, but it's still difficult even for us to sort of support her and create a safe space. We absolutely do our best, but there are times where we're like, oh my gosh.
Oh, don't you as a parent do that all the time though? Like I do, like,
so true.
Yeah, like,
what have I done?
What have I done? Yeah.
I know.
And having neurodivergent children, it is another layer of challenge as a parent. And this is a developmental process that I guess you have to be there and support and co-regulate and model and hope that with time that will get easier. And it's just it is really hard. I relate.
Yes.
And the other things too, like it can be the slightest thing, but just getting overwhelmed by having like a task being unclear, having unclear boundaries around it, or like just seeming overwhelming because it's got multiple steps. So I had a lot of clients go like really, you can get quite a profound freeze, like it's called autistic inertia or ADHD paralysis. And it's like, I can't do any of these things because I can't do the washing because there's already someone else's washing in there, and I need to take that out and put that in the basket, but the basket has got something else in it. And then so I need to do these other things first. And by now, like working memory, like the ability to track all these things in your head, it just gets all jumbled up. And then you just freeze. Like, and it seems such a, like laundry is such an issue for so many people. It's just because it's a multi-step process, and
it is.
The laundry in particular is interesting because unlike other tasks where you might wash up, and so you might do all of those tasks like wash the dishes, you get the detergent in, you wash the dishes, you might dry them or put them away, or if you're in my family, you just leave them sitting there till someone eventually puts them away. They dry in the draining rack and they get pulled out again. Whereas laundry, you have to gather it together and put it on, and then you have to come back an hour later, so that's another whole new task. You have to start and initiate and remember, and then you pull it out and put it on the line or the rack. And then you have to come back again, another half a day or a day later. And then you have to bring it in and fold it. But if you don't fold it then, that's another task.
That's such a good
Who does
point.
bring their washing in and fold it at the same time? Like no one.
Oh my gosh.
And because so that each one is an individual task that needs its own initiation and follow through, and is not really linked to the other task because there's this huge gap in between. So people really struggle with things like laundry, projects where you pick it up for a while and then you put it down and then you pick it up again later.
Yeah, that makes so much sense.
It's so stop-start. You can't,
I find that really hard.
You can't get into a flow.
Yeah, no flow, that's right. There's been a fantastic research paper actually that's come out this year that talks about autistic flow. I think it's going to transform, because that is actually hit on like one of the key strategies is to try and do tasks. In ADHD is called it hyperfocus, to try and create space to do the task end to end and to get into a flow state, because it's when you're stopping and starting or getting interrupted that it breaks that flow. And for me, the way I've described it to people is I'll work on your project for the period of time, and if I run out of time, I will then not think about it at all until I pick it up again, and then I need to sort of go back through my head, where am I up to, what am I doing, and then I start it again and work on it for a period of time. But in the meantime, if you email me about it, I will ignore those emails because I can't just
switch
jump in
into
and
it.
out of that task. I can, but it doesn't work well for me. It's overwhelming. So I will leave it and then I'll read all of your emails while I'm getting back into the task. So I'm trying to learn how to chunk things.
That's such a great example. And to find a strategy that therefore works better for you and that sort of utilises your knowledge about how you work with things. That's so good. Actually, I have a friend, I've told this story, I think on another episode, we did an episode on ADHD, but a friend of mine who has ADHD, and he got a coach in to help him deal with mess in the house because, he couldn't deal with clothes. You were talking about laundry, which is what made me think of it. And the coach said to him, okay, how does this work normally? He's like, okay, I've got the basket in my room, the clothes are dirty, I put them in the basket, then the basket is full. I take the basket to the laundry, I put the washing on, and then I leave. And then there's no basket in my room anymore. So then I have dirty clothes and I go, oh no, the basket's not in here. And they're, oh well, I'll just throw it on the floor for now. And before I know it, my entire room is covered with dirty clothes. And I think, how did I get here again? And so the coach actually said to him, I wonder if you might try this. When you go into the laundry, when you put the basket down, instead of putting it down in the room, put it down sort of in the doorway so that you're taking the dirty clothes out of it, putting them in the washer, but you cannot leave without tripping over the basket. And that will remind you to take the basket with you, because it's that step that he was missing. But I think it's what you said. It's like how multi-stage that process is.
Yeah.
But he said to me, it changed my life, Liz. I mean, I know it sounds funny to say, but it changed my life. And he goes, this is something other people wouldn't need to think about, but I needed to be told, like I needed to be helped with that strategy. And then once I had it, then I could not get into that same pattern that I was getting into that was then making me feel overwhelmed by how many dirty clothes I had on the floor.
Yeah, that's a really great example of linking tasks together in that way. So, and it actually, I would do something similar and it would it'd be a conscious thought that I have to think though every time. Like I wouldn't, now when I put this down, put the basket there. Other strategies people use like that is if they always have a cup of coffee in the morning, they put their medications in their clean coffee cup. If I'm leaving and I cannot forget something, I will have my keys and my phone on top of, or underneath the thing that I need. People will do things like leave their keys on top of their lunch in the fridge so that they won't forget their lunch because they have to go and get.
I've done that.
So and it's the same sort of thing. If I can link these things together. I can remember to brush my teeth if I have my toothbrush in the shower because I'm more likely to have a shower. So those sorts of things can be really good. And as an ADHD, it's actually still usually a conscious thought process every single time. I've realized I narrate that in my head every single time I do it. I don't forget to put that in there so that I don't forget that in the morning. Like it's not automatic. It never becomes automatic.
No.
It's a mental load, right?
Which is annoying.
It's annoying.
Still, mental load. Yeah. And I think, we've also heard that term, in a way around this idea of mental load and the struggle around bootstrap mentality. Like, can you tell us about that? How does that affect neurodivergent individuals?
I find the bootstrap mentality almost like pervasive amongst all neurodivergent people that I meet, certainly autistic and ADHD, as I should say. Bootstrap mentality, it's quite societally rewarded. It's this idea that I just need to dig deep, be more disciplined, work harder, pull myself up by the bootstraps, and then I will just get this sorted. So that's a sort of almost toxic independence, right? It's this sort of idea of I should be able to do this myself. Other people can do this. So I will not ask for help. I just need to try harder, work harder. And I meet people in their 50s who have been using this strategy their entire life and still cannot do those things because they have never asked for help. And it's guess what? It's not working. Like we actually need other people, and it's okay to ask for help. And that sometimes takes a long time for people to come around because this idea of asking for help obviously could also come with a sense of rejection, or what if they judge me, or what if they think I'm hopeless. But if you can afford a cleaner, get a cleaner. If you can, I could not do what I do if I didn't have a team of people, like I have a gardener and a cleaner, and I have a virtual assistant and a bookkeeper and an accountant. I don't think, but I can do my BAS, because I don't do my BAS. So
no, exactly right.
It's not about can. I can do all of those things. It's just that I won't. And I'm lucky because my husband does my washing, and all I am responsible for is really cooking, and I'm not reliable at doing that. I am an unreliable resource in that department nowadays. I was good when the kids were littler. So like if you can ask for help, and that's obviously not necessarily that's like me as an adult with family and kids and job, career and so forth. If you're a student, you can harness support from your friends. So most people have probably heard of body doubling. Like if you can let go of this idea, this sort of fierce independence and self-reliance, and go, I can do it, but I'm more likely to do it if I have a buddy with me. I mean, we've had study buddies since forever. I'm more likely to do it reliably if I have my friend remind me. So that's sort of called support swapping, or sharing spoons or something. Or if we sit together, even if we're both doing different assignments, or we're both doing our different craft activities, or we're playing different games, but we enjoy it alongside each other independently. So there's a sense of body doubling does really help people get things done.
So
powerful. But you need to ask and overcome that really internalized ableism, like I should be doing better. And who says so?
Yeah. Oh, that should word.
Yeah, it's a tricky one.
Need to eliminate it from the lexicon.
Well, that's right. And like, why do we even like have to sign up for these priorities? You know, like I would love, and I did this once and it stuck for a while. I did the whole Marie Kondo thing on my wardrobe, and I got rid of all of the clothes that didn't really fit or I didn't really like. I had really very small wardrobe of clothes that I loved, and all my little things were rolled up in drawers. Now, it lasted for a while, like maybe a year, because once it was set up, it wasn't that hard to maintain. But then we had a change in system. We moved house, and then it's never been set up again. And it's a mess, actually, my wardrobe. And I don't have a lot of clothes, thank God, but there's a lot in there I don't ever wear, and it's messy. Why does it need to be like that? It did make my life easier. But back to laundry again, because it's just such a beautiful example. Why must our laundry actually be folded and in drawers? Why can't you have a clean basket and a dirty basket? Why can't things just go from one basket to the other basket, and then when they come out of the dryer, they go back in the clean basket? Like, if that's going to make your life easier,
that's a good point.
Just live like that. Like Mark Zuckerberg, I mean, he's a lot of privilege, but he just only ever wears grey T-shirts and jeans. He's famous for it, and he's got hoodies that are black, I think. That's all he wears. That's one decision he doesn't have to make in the morning, less. And so he starts his day with less mental load. Why can't, if we only like wearing black, just wear black? You know, if you only like wearing a certain colour, then everything will go in your wardrobe. Or I worked with someone, she always wore a white shirt and a black pair of pants. Every single day I saw her at work, 3 days a week, she was wearing the same outfit. And I thought, why not? Like, here am I going, oh, did I wear that yesterday? And what do I need to wear? Like, who cares? Like, so let go of some of those standards. She didn't care. She was wearing what she was comfortable in, and she had less decisions to make every day.
I think what you're really speaking to, which I think is amazing, is this kind of idea of like, how do we let go of other people's judgment, or like this idea that someone's going to judge us for not fitting into this idea of what a competent, successful person looks like.
Yeah. It's societal ideals that we just don't need to sign up to, really, aren't they? And I think we often imagine people will judge us. But my experience is that people can't be bothered most of the time. They're busy doing their own stuff.
Right, exactly. We're so busy worrying about our own stuff that we don't have the people around you don't have the mental space to consider your life and your life choices.
Yeah.
Because they're too busy thinking about their own. Like,
I'd be too worried about what I was wearing. Is it comfortable today? Am I wearing shoes that shoes are an issue for me. I do find like tight shoes occupy way more real estate in my head than they should do. Like, I wish that tight, uncomfortable shoes will be distracting for the entire time they're on my feet. And whereas she had the same shoes every single day, the same outfits she was comfortable in, she didn't have to think about that. Why not? Like, I admire it. And these kinds of decisions, if I can let go of, it's really probably an internalized story that I'll be judged.
Yes, maybe not reality.
And that's easy to say when you're in your teens, late teens, early 20s. It's a lot about fitting in. Like, I know that, and I know that that's actually appropriate and developmental, and it's easy as an old person basically to sit here and say, stop worrying about what people think of you.
To say, who cares?
Who cares?
Easier said than
done. It's nice to hear those sometimes, I suspect, but it's like, but I can't really, because I will be judged. If those people are judging you, they're not your friends. That's all I can say. All right. Find Neurokin, find people that not only share features of your neurotype, whether, like cross neurotype is fine, but share some similarities, and also share your interests. That's like a gold mine. Like, those people don't care. They just like, you do you. No. That's all fine. Like, and that, I think, is this beautiful. This is what the power of being correctly identified with your neurotype is. The ability to find your kin, your neurokin, and connect. And even late diagnosis, which I guess is outside of childhood, has been shown to increase self-compassion and a sense of belonging, even in like mature adults. So that there's that beautiful, like, let's just let go of all this stuff that we don't need to be worrying about,
Yeah, that's it.
And there's plenty of young people who are like going, whatever, I'll wear exactly what I want. And I love it. I'm right here for it. Like, just do what you want to do.
Yeah, beautiful.
Definitely.
How can people or maybe a better question is, what are some strategies for self-regulation? Because you were sort of saying the emotional regulation, self-regulation, can be really challenging for neurodivergent people. And so what are some things that, I know that's a big question, but what are some things that people might be able to do to kind of optimize their executive function?
Yeah, so if we think about it as there being an optimal zone, okay, and you can be, I guess, understimulated and overstimulated. So first of all, practicing tuning into your body and asking yourself, what do I need? That's the first step. So if you're trying to do study and you're feeling restless and agitated, then you need to probably be moving your body. I've got randomly a little squishy brain that I got at the Yellow Ladybugs conference last week, and I've always got like fidgets and so forth around me, and if I don't, I will be having something in my hands, there will be no doubt. And so I need to have a certain amount of movement in order to focus. Some people need a lot more than I do. I've known quite a few people, for example, who can't work or can't study unless they're also playing a second screen that has like YouTube, or they're listening to podcasts. Now, I can't do that, but I now have worked out there's a certain type of music I can listen to that really helps me get into that state of flow, and it's a sort of an instrumental music. And I actually like classical music, but this is a sort of a blending of that. Yeah. And so I've tried a bunch of things to find out, and then listened to my body and seen whether I feel like I'm focused and I'm feeling better. Being so understimulated, you sort of add things in, experiment and find what works for you. And I think a lot of people feel like there's something wrong with listening to YouTube while they're studying. But if that's what they need, if that's what you need, just do it, right? It's not a problem. The overstimulated is probably something that you probably need to withdraw. You obviously need to remove sensory stimuli or executive functioning stimuli, like move and simplify, reduce, outsource, offload tasks, try and create distraction-free time periods. I have a colleague who has like a locked box that has a timer on it. He puts his phone in there when he's working, and he can't get it out for so many minutes. Feels drastic, but sometimes we need that sort of thing. We need to sort of reduce those kinds of extra stimuli to try and get ourselves focused. And the other thing that you can do to help you get yourself in that mode is to sort of think about how, like, often it's really, how can I stay focused? How can I regulate my attention?
Yeah.
ADHD is actually, it's not an attention deficit at all. It's too much attention, and it's unfiltered attention. So it's difficulty usually filtering out distractions, like the buzzing lights and the cars outside and that ticking sound is given equal priority in my brain to the work that I'm doing. So it's pulled in all directions.
Yes. Oh, that's such a good description.
So obviously, you could wear noise-cancelling headphones. You can do those kinds of things to try and rule out some of those distractions. And then focusing, I like the NICE acronym. So ADHD can hyperfocus when something is novel, interesting, challenging, or an emergency. So if you can, I love that. Even a boring task, sometimes if you can make it new or interesting in some way, or challenging, like you can create a bit of a competition, like how fast can I get this done? How many chores can I get done in 10 minutes? Like how fast can I edit this assignment? Like, can I beat my friend at this particular job I've got to do? So those sorts of things. Or how can I make it more challenging? Is there a problem here that I could solve? Could I find a better way of doing this? Like trying to make it more interesting in those kinds of ways. jobs that offer a lot of novelty can be helpful. Even working as a psychologist, every single client is different. Thank goodness, because otherwise it'd be pretty boring for me pretty quick, right? So, but there's a novelty factor every single time someone walks in the door, because I don't know, even if I know them really well, what's happened, catch me up.
Every session is different.
Every session is different. It's really helpful. And then there's the emergency. So this is why people leave things when they can't make it interesting. Or I'd try those things first. But if you can't, then you need a deadline and you need a panic.
Yes.
You need adrenaline and you need panic,
Yes.
and then you'll do it, usually.
Wow, that's so useful.
So, yeah.
I'm gonna share that one with my daughter. I think that would be really beneficial, because I see that in her as well. Like when she's doing something that's novel and interesting for her, she absolutely can hyper-focus and she can get a heap done and she stays engaged with that task for hours and hours and hours and hours. But when it comes to homework, really struggles. Except, when it's like the teacher's going, if you don't hand this in, you're at academic risk. She got it done.
That's good, because there can be a sweet spot of like panic where it paralyzes you too. So you've got to titrate that really carefully.
Yeah.
Sometimes, as a young adult, you can set yourself deadlines, which can help too. Just like create a sense of urgency. I have to get this done before I can go and do this, or I have to, get this milestone done, or a draft completed by, or to try and create. Doesn't always work, artificial deadlines, but it's worth a try. Yeah. We sort of talk about autism and ADHD as really having an interest-oriented nervous system. So the focus in autism, it's called monotropism, so like a narrower, deeper focus of interests. And in ADHD, it's sort of called hyperfixations or hyperfocus. And so really a lot of attention for things that are interesting and no attention whatsoever towards things that are not interesting. Like completely, I will just zone out in that conversation. Like, you lost me, I'm bored, and I'm no longer here. But luckily you've got me on one of my hyperfocus, like my total monotropic interests, right? So I'm good to talk all day on this topic. I'm here.
So you're here with us. You haven't left the room.
Yeah. Well, maybe before we let you go, maybe you could please tell us about your book and where people can get a hold of it if they want to take a deeper dive into understanding neurodivergence and building skills in managing those challenges with executive functioning and more. I know there's more in your book than that.
There's a lot more than that book. It's broad. Yeah. So it's called the Neurodivergence Skills Workbook for Autism and ADHD, and we've included both autism and ADHD because even though sometimes they have different names, they share a lot of the same challenges, and there's obviously this massive genetic connection between the two, sort of seem to come from the same pool of genetic differences. So it was a labour of love, I have to say, putting it together, because we really wanted to create something that would have helpful skills across the sort of key areas that people struggle with. So we've started by sort of, like we've discussed today, talking about what is neurodivergence, going a little deeper into some of the different characteristics of autism and ADHD, and some of the social challenges and some of the problems that come out of that. There's sort of minority stress and things like that. That's sort of laying out. And then every other chapter from there goes through a different sort of challenge that you would face and skills that you can use. So the first one looks at burnout, because therapeutically, when a neurodivergent person is walking in the door, pretty much always they're already in burnout. So until you're getting out of burnout, like a lot of other things are hard to do. So really that's a really essential foundation. Then we talk about managing overwhelming emotions and like regulation strategies, self-criticism and getting things done. So what we've talked about a lot today, those two topics. Then we've talked about like building safe friendships, so finding Neurokin. We've basically talked about the whole book today, which is great. The bit we didn't talk about is unmasking. So like learning to be yourself, like learning who you are and learning to be yourself around others, and self-advocacy skills, which is what I imagine you would be helping a lot of students with, is helping them like speak up for what they need, work out what they need and speak up and ask for extra support. So how to do that, the kinds of skills, including things like learning to say no, learning to set boundaries. So there's a lot of stuff in here. There's all sorts of stuff that you can pick out. It's full of like practical activities and things you can try. It's good for therapists to use with clients, but it's designed for people who are so Monique and myself are both autistic and ADHD, are clinical psychologists. So there's a lot of personal experience in there as well. So a lot of personal anecdotes and things to sort of make it relatable, I guess. Yeah. So yeah, I'm really excited. I've got my copy here. It's coming out in 1st of July, and I can't wait to get people's feedbacks. Quietly nervous, but yeah, I hope people like it.
Yeah. Oh, no, it sounds fabulous. I am definitely going to be getting myself a copy. I think that sounds so useful.
Absolutely.
Both as a therapist in understanding working with clients with some of these challenges, but also in my own family. And yeah, I think that's it. It sounds great. Yeah. So they can order it through like your website. Is it available on Amazon?
Yeah, it's a US-based publisher. It's even going to be an audiobook too, which we're really thrilled about. That'll help it make it more accessible for a lot of people struggle to read a book but can listen to an audiobook. So yeah, I'm really excited for that. That's coming out a couple of weeks after the print copy. So, but yes, I think it's really easy to find. It'll be on Amazon, all of those places. Yeah, everywhere you would normally buy a book, it'll be there.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Jennifer. We really are beyond grateful for the huge generosity you've had to speak to us twice on two really central topics that I think are going to be so relevant and important for our students to be able to listen to, or anyone who listens to our podcast. So thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. It's been my pleasure chatting to you. Thanks for having me here.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Counselling Armchair, Nurturing Your Study and Wellbeing. We extend our deepest thanks to Jennifer Kemp for making time for us and sharing her expertise. Her book is called the Neurodivergence Skills Workbook for Autism and ADHD. Cultivate Self-Compassion, Live Authentically, and Be Your Own Advocate. We'll pop the details of how to get Jennifer's book in our show notes. Whether you are neurodivergent or neurotypical, understanding any challenges you may have with executive functioning is crucial for developing strategies and accommodations to help you thrive. And if you are neurodivergent, we hope that you feel empowered to develop strategies and seek any support to help you be your best. If you found today's episode helpful, please subscribe to our podcast for new episodes and share it with friends and family. We'd also love to hear your thoughts, so please leave a review. Until next time, take care and be kind to yourself.
Thanks for joining us today on the Counselling Armchair, Nurturing Wellbeing and Study. We hope you enjoyed today's episode and learned a useful thing or two. Have a great week, and just remember that life can be amazing. See you next time.
Isn't life so amazing? Sometimes it can get crazy, but hey, that's okay. We've got another day to make mistakes and say sorry. There's no sense in our worry, 'cause all we can do is try our best to make it through with love.